Welcome everyone, I'm Donna Kastner and I am thrilled to share this fast-paced talk, Too Young to Be Done, Crafting Your Next. I said fast-paced, 15 slides, 15 minutes, so buckle up. We're going to cover some territory here, but essentially, crafting your next, maybe you're someone that's thinking about something you might do in the later stages of your career, but even more importantly, there is an incredible audience segment, event audience segment out there that is largely being ignored these days, and they have a lot of needs, and some of them even have the dollars to invest. And I think as you see this talk this morning, I want you to think about why courting this audience, maybe not as your primary target, but as a secondary, will help grow engagement and revenue for your events. So here we go, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to jump into our time travel machines for a minute, not going too far, going back to early 2019. We already could see that the workforce was changing rapidly, and we hadn't even hit this COVID challenge. We were now seeing 4 and even 5 generations in the workplace. And, you know, was there peace and harmony all the time? Yeah, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But there were those occasional rumbles in the workforce sandbox and things like, okay, boomer. But you know, it was a challenge, but we were also equally fascinated by the diversity within these teams, certainly the age diversity and how each age demographic brought different lenses, different sensibilities to more collaborative and innovative conversations. So all in all, it was good, but it was a little tricky. And I'll tell you, at the same time, I was crossing a crazy crossroads myself. I crossed this age 60 milestone, and you'll see in my profile, I'm an event organizer almost 20 years now, but I'm also the founder of Retirementpreneur. And quite frankly, I'm talking about this Encore career transition because I'm living it out loud myself. So just a few things to keep in mind, but let's stay in this 2019 time frame for one more minute. Okay. So all this workplace change is happening, and there's a lot of challenges happening, and owners and CEOs are trying to figure out how to create high innovative, highly collaborative teams. Thought leaders were emerging that were really speaking to this future of workspace. And one in particular that I have been following for some time is Heather McGowan. For those of you that might have attended PCMA's Convening Leaders 2020, remember back in our live events, she had an amazing talk, and this chart continues to be one I reference about how this whole piece is changing. So the old paradigm, we were very linear and segmented. First you learned, then for another 30, 40 years you earned, and then you retired 10 years or so, and lifespans, life expectancy was maybe 75 years. But now people are living longer and they're staying engaged in work in different capacities. But look at this emerging reality. Not only is there a longer runway, but look at the learning piece. It's not just reserved for the early stages of our career. It's ongoing. It's those lifelong learners that are attending your events all along. And I want you to keep that in mind as we start to look at why this age 55 plus demographic is one that you might want to reconsider and start teeing up content and experiences for. Okay, we're back to present day. Yep, here it is. We're still in COVID. It's 2021. There are promising signs. We are in the early stages of recovery, and no one's more thrilled than I am about that. But we still have some more road to go. And I want you to think about how this is impacting all of your attendees, but think about that age 55 plus audience. When COVID first hit in March of 2020, one thing I noticed was early on, the healthcare professionals were calling age 60 and older vulnerable. And I'm looking at that going, wait a minute. And I understand that. And as you get older and there are more factors in there, but suddenly we were kind of getting pushed off the ship. And if you think about events, and I know that I've been to many conferences where I'm watching and loving and applauding the 40 under 40, the 30 under 30, but there are times that I might nudge a colleague that is in my age bracket and say, where are we? What's going on here? And there is so much more that we want to be involved in, and this is a big but, it's going to be in a different capacity, a different role. Okay, so here's the reality of COVID as it impacts older workers. And this study is from the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis, and they have been watching unemployment rates and across various demographics. And they have tracked all the way back to recessions back in the 70s. And each and every recession or economic downturn, the older workers actually fared better than their younger colleagues as far as keeping their jobs. Then we crossed 2020 and the entire situation flipped. Seniority wasn't keeping them that job. In fact, it was actually making them a target. And in turn, decisions were being made that they needed to exit. And think about it. When you're 55, when you're 60, landing that next job is going to be much more difficult. And it's also, it's going to take longer. And quite frankly, Retirementpreneur is something that hit me 10 years ago. And I was thinking, along the 2008 recession, when there were some rumbles happening and older people, there was some ageism going on per se. My thought was, well, you can wait to get hired or you can hire yourself. And I think this mindset among this older demographic and even the mid-career professionals will continue to grow. Okay, so I'm all hopeful and I'm about to tell you why targeting and teeing up meaningful experiences and engaging the age 55 plus audience matters. But one caveat, everyone gets older, some get elder. We all age from the moment we're born. And when I say everyone gets older, yes, there are some that reach those older stages and they're like, wow, these youngins, they don't understand how we used to do business. That's not the segment I'm recommending you lean into. They can come. They're more than welcome to come to your events and continue to keep them in mind. But it's the modern elders. It's the lifelong learners. Think about Heather McGowan's chart. They've been coming to your conference throughout their entire career, 30 years or more. Is now a time when you want to ignore them? They have big needs, but they're changing and reskilling in there. They're trying to figure out how they're going to conduct those career pivots, and your event can be very instrumental. And keep in mind, there were studies done that 70% of the disposable income in the United States is controlled by boomers, okay? So let's not take our eyes off that quite yet, because they do have the dollars to invest in the need. And then keep this in mind. I think it's $8.7 trillion will be inherited by boomers in the next 10 years. So do you really want to take your eye off that ball? Because there's some revenue growth opportunities here as well. Okay, so let's start talking about the good news. And here are 3 thought leaders and incredible speakers that you might want to take a closer look at. First, we have Paul Irving. He's chairman of the Milken Institute, the Center of the Future of Aging. Amazing research going on there. And they have found that mixed age teams can outperform exclusively young or exclusively older teams. It's that diversity within the group, diversity of perspectives that actually feeds innovation. So generational blending, you've probably heard that. That's something you might want to lean into, and these modern elders could be a help in those conversations. Laura Carstensen at the Stanford Center for Longevity, also some amazing talks. She's an amazing speaker. And quite frankly, 60, 70, and 80 doesn't look like it did 10, 20 years ago, thanks to more attention to wellness. We're eating better, we're exercising, and people in their 80s are testing like people in prior generations did in their 60s. And lastly, Joseph Coughlin at the MIT Age Lab, this whole living to age 95 isn't a dream. It's actually happening. And the research they're doing, and his best-selling book, The Longevity Economy, more great stuff to dig into. So let's move on. So pre-COVID, the gig economy, that was bubbling up. People were talking about it. People had those side hustles. Thanks to digital, we could do that job on the side. Well, guess what? With COVID, it kind of democratized digital. We're all in the digital pool, like it or not. And guess what? The age 55 group that might have been struggling before isn't struggling so much now. So here's a thought for both your physical events and your online events. How about like some kind of startup incubator? You're looking at cities to have those live events eventually. Why not talk to them about what local resources you might tap to create an incubator right on your trade show floor? Imagine the incredible conversations. And it's not all boomers and Xers, it's all generations are looking at this closely. If you look at a couple of these stats, and this is from 2020, 44% of gig workers say that their work in the gig economy is their primary source. It's no longer the side hustle. It's becoming the main hustle. So feeding those entrepreneurial needs is a smart idea. Mutual mentorship. You know, once upon a time, mentorship was one way. It was the elder to the youngins. And hey, let me tell you about how business was done back in the day. You know what? We're not the smartest people in the room, hardly. And the concept of mutual mentorship, where you pair senior professionals with younger early stage professionals, is really growing. And let me tell you something, it's not just about what they know, the know-how, it's the know-who. When I think about the people I know, and this is 40 years of a career for me, man, if I had access to those people, you know, midway through my career, I'm sure I would have advanced even faster. So this concept of mutual mentorship at your events has so much value and opportunity to broker introductions, both young to old and old to young. So keep that in mind. Maybe there's a mentor lounge at your event. And okay, Chip Connolly, oh my goodness, if you get a chance to take a peek at this book that came out in 2018, Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. First of all, I love the term he's coined, modern elder. Hey, that's me. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm constantly curious and I'm not ready to exit, but I might be dialing it down a bit. Let me tell you, Chip actually comes from our industry. He, in his 20s, founded Joie de Vivre, one of the largest boutique hotel chains. Over the course of 20 years, he grew it and he sold it. And then as he was approaching 50, he got a very interesting invitation from a millennial CEO, the CEO at Airbnb. And he said, Chip, how would you like to help us democratize the hospitality? And he was trying to figure out how Airbnb might cater to housing needs for events. So Chip Connolly came on board. Suddenly, he finds himself, Silicon Valley, he's surrounded by millennials, and they're speaking a language that he doesn't understand. Their digital intelligence, their DQ was surpassing his, even with the leadership and growth he had done. Yet he noticed as he became this advisor and in this capacity and helping them grow this business segment, that modern elders tended to have a better handle on EQ, emotional intelligence. Both matter, and there are ways that this comes into play, but he coined the term mentern, which is part mentor and part intern. We modern elders have to be vulnerable, curious. We have to ask questions and be willing to show what we don't know. So there's some more food for thought as you start to think about how you'll cater to this crowd. I caught this actually just this week. I was watching PCMA Convening Leaders 2021 and the keynote by Thomas Friedman, who always makes me think, but he talked about, you know, we elders sometimes think we're the problem solvers, but you know what is a better role for us to play? We're problem finders. We're looking at the entire business landscape through a different lens, and we'll often spot things that our younger counterparts might miss. They're assuming certain things. So again, enter the problem finder. And relative to your events, whether they're live, whether they're digital, hybrid certainly is where we're all landing. Imagine some kind of future jobs pavilion where you start to introduce roles like the problem finder. Gotta love it. Now, this whole networking piece, we're still kind of struggling with this a bit, but we're making some headway as it applies to digital online events. But let me talk about innovation and collaboration. We are all looking for that next breakthrough idea. The business landscape is changing so fast. And so innovation is the top trait that CEOs are looking for in their teams. And at our events, as we design experiences, you want to find your sweet spot blend, because you know what? The innovator's DNA, Hal Gregerson, Clayton Christensen, and others wrote this book 15 years ago, and innovators network differently. They don't gravitate to like-minded, they gravitate to different-minded people, because that's where the new ideas happen. That said, I think finding some nice blend of like-minded, tribal kinds of networking encounters, and then different-minded, expanding our vision, that's something that I would encourage you to find. What is that perfect blend for your audience? So often when people get sent to me, you got to go see the Retirementpreneur if you're looking to start up a business, and we have a conversation. And one of the first things I'll ask these modern elders that are either concerned that they won't hold their job long enough, or they're actually moving forward to something new, is, okay, just tell me what your ultimate motivator is. Do you want to make a buck? Or do you want to make a difference? I know that's my New York straight to cut to the chase language coming out, but there are different paths for different people. And let me tell you, within this age 55 plus crowd, there is deeper longing for meaning, for purpose, for making a difference, for taking the talents and gifts that we've accrued over an entire career and doing something good and worthwhile. And there may be no income coming from this. So think about this relative to your events. Volunteers, maybe these modern elders might be the people helping to organize and to kind of direct those volunteers in the right places. And if you've got a foundation, these modern elders are well connected and are eager to help with fundraising to help advance their industry too. So that's one more reason why you don't want them stepping off quite yet. Bridging the generations. Okay, so a few years ago, I was introduced to Joe Morgan, who was CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Standard Register, which was headquartered in Dayton. That has since been sold. Fortune 500s are changing. But boy, get a scrapper like me and a Fortune 500 CEO together, and it's kind of interesting how the conversation takes off. We were an unlikely pair, yet we moved forward together and partnered in a series of workshops for business owners, for C-suite executives, called Bridging the Generations. And this takes us back to the early talking points. There were rumbles in the workplace sandbox happening. Millennials were suddenly managing people that were their parents' age, and this wasn't quite going so well. We hosted a series of breakfast briefings and brought business leaders together to collectively figure out how can we foster richer cross-generational experiences within our companies. And the conversations were amazing. So if you're looking for another hot topic that might bring in this crowd, this is it. Okay, so my mission, and it's been a fast-paced session and I'm at the end of my time. If you're intrigued, if there's something that I've teed up there, certainly you're going to have to think about it and develop it more, but a few next steps you might explore. First of all, Encore.org. This organization has been around for nearly 20 years. They are very focused on modern elders applying their talents to more for charitable ventures, getting into schools and helping with education, any number of charitable endeavors. So Encore.org is one place to take a look. Another place, and you're going to have to excuse me, I want to look at my notes for a second. I had the good fortune to meet Carrie Hannon a couple of years ago. She's a New York Times bestselling author and very focused on this transition, career transitions, and definitely focused on this group. Her latest book is Great Pajama Jobs, Your Complete Guide to Working from Home. She's a great speaker, so another resource to tap. And last, there's me. You know what? I don't want to be all self-promotional, but I've been traveling this landscape and studying it intently for more than a decade. And if you're wondering, you're not sure, give me a holler. You'll find my contact information in the profile. I am happy to jump on the phone just to explore, just to be you want to kind of toss some ideas by someone with strong opinions, happy to do that. So thanks so much for watching this, and I look forward to watching what you do next.